Yes.
The virgin birth could be interpreted either way, and I'm not bothered too much about that. I mean, I do take historical fact very seriously, but clearly some proclamations of Christianity are more important than others. And the resurrection is absolutely fundamental.
But how do you decide? I mean, because it's all there in the Bible. You arbitrarily say, I'm going to believe that one, but not that one. That one's symbolic. That one I believe. That one's borderline.
Well, I'm not talking at the moment about whether it is true or not. I'm talking about whether it's important that it's true. That's the only point that I was making there. It is absolutely fundamental to Christianity that the resurrection of Christ, in some sense, some very real sense, is profoundly true. I believe that if that was not the case, then it would not be possible to be a Christian believer. So I do take very seriously the importance of certain alleged, in inverted commas, historical facts. When I put it in inverted commas, because clearly the resurrection is both within history and out of history. It's not totally containable within what we call historical criteria and parameters.
But you seem to be saying that
we seem to be getting onto religion rather than science. I think we need to getting off creation.
No, but you're the one who articulated this argument that these two things were not incompatible.
Yeah.
We're just getting into some other areas where they might be incompatible.
Well,
right. I've not come across any other resurrections. Maybe. Go on, Richard.
Well, let's get on to science then, shall we?
Yeah.
Shall we? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. When you say that, and of course I agree with you, that the universe is wonderful and great and awe-inspiring, I find that I get that from science, and the more I learn about science, the more wonderful it is. And then if I go and read something from not just the Bible, but really any piece of sacred text, any piece of anthropological speculation, I find that I'm brought down to earth with a bang. It suddenly ceases to be so grand, it becomes rather petty, rather small. It's of course interesting from a historical point of view that people have believed these things, and every tribe in the world believes different things. There is a certain interest in it, but it doesn't even begin to measure up to the scale of the universe. That's what I meant when I said that even Haydn couldn't really redeem the words of the creation that we were listening to. It's small, it's petty, it's diminished. If only Haydn had lived a century or so later and could have written the Evolution Oratorio.
But wouldn't you say that all the things which you regard as small and petty, leaving aside whether that's a correct judgment, do clearly reflect our human limitations to grasp the majesty and wonder of the universe? Because I'd put it to you, if you feel like this about the universe, which you clearly do, if there was a fountain origin of the universe, then that fountain and origin must by definition be even more awesome and wonderful, however inadequate the limitations of our attempts to grasp and express that.
Yes, indeed, and that's one of the reasons why I don't believe it, but we come on to that later.
Sorry, what you don't...
Well, when you say fount...
Yes, but all I'm asking you to say yea or nay to is that you clearly have this profound sense of wonder and awe before the beauty and the complexity of the universe. All I'm suggesting to you that if there was a wise rationality behind all this, which caused it all to come into being, which moment by moment holds it in existence, then by definition that wise intelligence would be even more awesome and wonderful. If there was,
yes,
that's all I'm saying. I'm not putting you in the same corner of saying, but if there was.
What I meant was that my reason for not believing in it is precisely that an intelligence capable of designing something so wonderful would exactly, in your words, have to be even more wonderful. That means even more improbable. Now, biggest legacy, I think, that Darwin has given us, it's not just in biology. What Darwin has given us is a way of explaining how you can start from ultimate simplicity, the simple beginnings of the universe, the simple beginnings of life, and build up to it by slow, steady, intelligible steps to all the wonders that we see. That's what science does. Science explains how you can get these wonderful things if you start from something simple. Now, if you start from something complex, like an intelligence, then you've sold the pass. You have smuggled in a non-explanation disguised as an explanation. That was the point I was trying to make in answer to you there.
But I would suggest that by definition, if there was a wise intelligence behind it all, then by definition, that wise intelligence must contain within himself or herself the whole of the complexity which has emerged in creation.
But it's so improbable that you would get
well,
that.
To say something that's either probable or improbable, you must have some examples, but we don't have an example to say it's either probable or improbable. There's only one universe here
Let's look at what Darwin actually did. Darwin showed that you can get complexity, you can get brains, eyes, wings, intestines, hearts. You can get all these beautiful and wonderful complex things starting from almost nothing, starting from molecules in the primeval soup and then going back before that. That is a stupendous feat of explanation. That's what Darwin did. That shows us what can be done by science in explaining the existence of complicated, awe-inspiring things, starting from simple things which don't need so much of an explanation. They still need an explanation, but not such a big explanation. The big explanation, which before Darwin came along, Paley and everybody else, as you said, there had to be an intelligence, as they thought, because it is so complicated. Darwin showed that you can get from simplicity to complexity by slow, steady, intelligible, gradual steps. That seems to me to undercut the whole argument for an intelligence that lies behind it. You could say, oh, well, God just decided that natural selection and evolution was the way to do it, was the way he was going to do his creation. That means that he chose the one method of doing it, which made him unnecessary.
But you still have to face the issue that from this extraordinary simplicity at the beginning, there has emerged this whole complex process leading up to human minds which can enter into and understand the ordered processes of the whole system of evolution. This surely is quite extraordinary, that something as simple as basic matter should have eventually produced you and me and Jeremy sitting here. And the theory of evolution itself can't explain that.
Yes,
it can't explain how that simplicity was there in the first place, a simplicity which, as it were, had all this complexity built into it.
It wasn't built in. There had to be an initial simplicity, and that does need an explanation, and that's something that physicists are working on. It's something that I can't help with. But it was simple. However difficult it may be to explain something simple, it's a hell of a lot more difficult to explain something complex.
But would you agree that there are two kinds of explanatory theory? There's one which tries to describe a process of how something is coming about, which scientists do in their laboratories. But there is another kind of explanatory theory. When you go home or I go home and we wonder about the experience of beauty or love or the pain of life, and we wonder what the heck's it all about. Now, you're not going to get a scientific explanation to that. You're going to get an answer that either there is a purpose, or there isn't a purpose, or we don't know. But it's a totally different it's a totally different question, requiring a totally different answer